Two unemployed actors, two unemployed actors. They're just between projects.
Welcome back to Two Unemployed Actors. I'm Max.
I'm Sam.
Little Sam's just woken up. We've got a special guest with us today, Mr. Sam Hargrave, from stunt performer to stunt coordinator to director. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
We've got so many questions for you as two up-and-coming actors navigating through the business, and you've got so much experience from starting out as a stunt performer, working your way through the business. I mean, what made you start to motivate to get into stunts? It's not exactly something you'd automatically wake up and go, yeah, I love the idea of getting hurt on set. It's great.
Good point. Yeah, it wasn't something that I woke up wanting to do. It was inspired by many years of, truthfully, reading Louis L'Amour novels when I was a young lad. Just a great American Western author who wrote a lot of action-oriented stories of the American West. And there was always at least one good gunfight and one good fist fight.
Brilliant.
And so reading those books as a kid, I'd try to reenact those things. And then some of the old Western TV shows I would see, reruns of The Lone Ranger or Roy Rogers or old John Wayne movies. My brother and I would try to reenact these things. And that was the start of it without really knowing that was the start of it. And, we'd get our little high 8 or VHS cameras that my parents would have, and we would try to recreate these scenes. And, just for fun, never with any knowledge that might one day become a career. And then it was Jackie Chan movies when I started into martial arts. I guess I was 14 years old when I took my first martial arts class. And it was, that was it. I was hooked. There was no going back for me. It was down that road I went.
What sort of martial arts did you do as a teenager?
Yeah, I started with Taekwondo. It was very straightforward. I remember the why was my sister. I have an older sister, and she was taking night classes, and my mother encouraged her to take some form of self-defense if you're going to be going to classes at night by yourself. And she said, sure, I'll do it. And then so my mom signed her up, and then she had these 10 introductory classes. And then my sister said, no way I'm being caught dead in those pajamas. So she skipped out on class, and my mom was left holding, the 10 lessons she'd paid for. And she said, hey, somebody's taking these courses. And so I raised my hand because I wanted to be like, all the martial arts masters I saw on the TV. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I remember watching Bruce Lee movies because my mum was really interested in martial arts and Bruce Lee, believe it or not. So I ended up watching Bruce Lee movies and a bit of Jackie Chan, and started doing Wing Chun Kung Fu in Melbourne.
Okay.
So I used to get bullied at school, you see, so I'd use humour, but that only worked 50% of the time. So it's still, those odds still aren't favourable. So Wing Chun Kung Fu helped me, and it's great for confidence too as a teenager.
Yeah, it really is. So many benefits to martial arts. At least there were for me.
Yep.
I was a very, active kid, very hyper. And so it helped focus that energy. It taught me discipline.
Yeah.
And, it was also a way, for in a structured way, I was allowed to get out all this energy. Other than, throwing my brother out of barns and into cars and things.
I'm starting to feel sorry for your brother already.
Similar thing to you, Sam. I did Krav Maga for a little bit, not too long, but I did for a little bit. And I have 2 younger brothers, and similar idea. Like, we just used to watch movies and kind of reenact fight scenes, and I'd end up probably breaking one of their arms or something like that. But filmed it and got it on camera, so it worked out well.
As long as you get it on film, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you got to get on film. It's good fun.
Jackie Chan, fantastic fight scenes. I love the way that he films. Like, it starts with a big wide shot and it just keeps going, and then sort of turns into this little handheld and just sort of doesn't cut away.
Yeah,
it's just it makes it feel so real, and it's so fast.
Yes, there's a lot. I mean, gonna double tap that sentence you just said there, because the way Jackie Chan creates and photographs and edits fight scenes has been very instrumental in my career. Just the sensibilities he has, not only for action but for comedy, and the rhythm to the fight scenes. When creating action and when trying to come up with these fight scenes or action concepts, there is a musicality that lives within the action. And that's something that I think very few people have captured as well as Jackie Chan. And that was always something that I was drawn to of his style. There's a lot of other great action directors and martial arts choreographers, but to me, the musicality of his style was always very entertaining and very inspiring.
Do you have a favorite fight scene of yours, Sam, from Jackie Chan or from kind of anything, really?
A favorite fight scene? That's kind of like asking
what's your favorite film.
Yeah, well, what's your favorite film? What's your favorite ice cream? It's like, well, it depends on the day. And what I've had most recently. I think there's a series of film. I mean, it's so difficult because he's done so many great things in so many great ways. I think that there's Project A, part 1 and 2 have some of the most, not just fight, but kind of action sequences that I've really ever kind of come across. And the thing about Jackie Chan was he was always pushing the envelope. Like if you go back and see watch what they were doing, I mean, that wasn't just him. He was part of this era of Hong Kong action designers and directors who were just, it was like it was like Marvel does, where they just kept, the movies just kept coming out and they keep hitting the mark, and they just keep pushing each other. Now you got to go bigger and better. And they weren't doing it with computer generated images and effects. They were doing it with their bodies and the expression of the human body through action. And it got to a point where, stuntmen were going down like left and right because they had to push the envelope. It's the audiences who wanted to see more and bigger and better, and they didn't have the money for the special effects and the visual effects. So it was all physicality, and man, they did some insane things.
He's had a few broken bones too. I mean, he does
sure
everything
has.
himself.
Sure.
When you're pushing the envelope that much, that often, I guess that's the risk that comes with it. And I guess occupational health and safety back in the Hong Kong days on set, it's probably a bit different to now.
A little bit different.
I remember during I was following you on social media, and I think one of my favorite photos of you was when you were strapped to the bonnet of a camera car, and I've just thought to myself, here's a stuntman making an action movie, and like you'd look like you're just like a fat kid on a cupcake, mate. You were so happy that day, I tell you.
It's interesting the things we do and the why. For me, it was never that I set out to do crazy things when making Extraction. It was more about, I wanted to try to capture an action sequence, in real time, and do something that really thrust the audience to the forefront of the battle and put them in the action, so to speak. So it wasn't quite first-person shooter game, but it also wasn't the way that Jackie Chan would be back a little bit. It was a mixture, like longer takes, fluid action, but you were in there with them. And sometimes the only way to achieve those shots was to put myself in some pretty precarious situations. And it was less about, that I'm the best camera operator or anything. It was more about the safety aspect. That I knew just my years of stunt performing and being on set and around these dangerous events, kind of what needed to happen, where I needed to be, and how to get out of trouble if something should go south. Right. And I just didn't feel comfortable putting other people in that position. And thusly, I strapped myself to the hood of the car.
The culmination of it was like the pinnacle moment for you. It's like everything's just coming together right now. And because you get so close at such speed, you get so close to the other vehicle. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think the credit has to go then to the stunt team for keeping me safe. Like I strapped myself to the hood of that car, but I wasn't strapping myself. First of all, there was a stunt rigging team that made sure I was safe, and then there were drivers who were driving that car. the different vehicles that I was in, and the ones we were interacting with. It's a whole choreographed dance, you know. And safety is huge. It's a huge responsibility for any filmmaker, and especially from an action standpoint. It's very much at the forefront of my mind when designing these things.
Yeah, I think like as an actor, you know, and growing up, especially with the martial arts, that I always thought, oh, I'd love to do all my own stunts and that, but no, I mean, to be able to do it again and again and look good and hit the mark looking good, you know, I mean, me flying through the air screaming like a 10-year-old girl and, you know, a bit of wee coming out, it's not going to cut it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like most people could do the stunts that we do once.
Yeah.
It's having to do them over and over again, like you said, hitting a mark and getting back up, and not just doing it to get the moods right, but performing. Because as a stunt performer, you're as much an actor in that moment as an actor is. You're portraying the character physically in that moment, and you're capturing emotional content, and there's a lot of stuff that has to go through your mind and be expressed through your body in these sequences.
Even at the start, like when you come up with a concept for that car chase, for example, in Extraction, like you're thinking, well, what are the given circumstances of the moment? What's the character's objective? And all that's factored in as you're sort of designing, I imagine, those sorts of scenes.
Right. Yes, we would approach an action scene as an action designer, pretty much how an actor or a director would approach any scene. Like, where are you coming from? Where are you going? What's the emotional through line of this scene? What are the beats you need to hit? Like, what are the transitions? It's all very similar. And I think, it works both ways, meaning anyone who's wanting to get into acting can learn a lot from the technical side of the camera, right? And the hitting marks and knowing the flow of things, knowing what lenses are being used and the methodology. But then on the flip side, those who are either want to direct or direct actors or design sequences, it's helpful to know the acting side of it, because you have to be able to communicate with actors, and you need to know these things about, again, like emotional through lines and what are these character beats you're trying to hit, all the things that actors do to prepare. A good action designer and director should be doing those same things.
Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive when it all comes together, and I guess working out I'll just hang on a sec. The Dashhound's woken up and he's a bit surprised to see me at 5 a.m. Australian time. But anyway, but I think
that's early for you guys. I commend you for getting up so early. Well done.
A couple of shots of coffee, and it's any time you need it to be. Yeah. But I guess how long does it take from that concept stage all the way through pre-production planning and rehearsing with stunt teams?
It really depends on the sequence. It depends on the movie. For example, since we're talking about it, we can use it as a reference. But the one for Extraction 1, that conceptually happened probably 4 or 5 months before we started filming.
Wow. And
then it was playing around with some storyboard concepts, and then it was because originally, just to get a little film history, it was written in the script as a very exciting, very long action sequence that would be outborn any Bourne movie or any Bond movie. And when I read it and saw the number of days we had to shoot it, I was like, that's going to be real tough, because we don't have the second unit funds. We don't have the time. We only have a certain amount of time to shoot it. How can we take that amazing sequence and kind of bring it all into our main unit and keep the actors involved as much as possible? And I was like, well, what if we just did it all in one in real time? So then you don't have to have all these different cutaways and doubles for stuff. So it was actually grown or born out of necessity. And then, once we kind of leaned into the creative idea, then, 4 months of kind of conceptualizing, then you get with stunts and you start saying, hey, how do we execute this? I want to have the actors in the car driving safely. How do we do that? So it's like, all right, let's design a backseat drive car or a pod car where you drive from the rooftop and you're filming inside and you can't see. And so how do we make it safe? How do we make it entertaining and believable? And so once the creative gets at least a through line, again, we prepare as much as possible. And then it's like an actor going to set, you prepare, and then the real magic comes from the spontaneity of the moment, right? And making choices in the here and now. And so there's a lot of things, for example, the moment where Rake is going to throw the kid across the roof. That action was always there, jumping across the roof, but the pause and the character moment and the back and forth between them of, hey kid, do you trust me? And he's like, no. Good. And he throws him across the roof. That was improvised. Like there wasn't a built-in moment there for that. But when we were there, we just said, a lot of action's been happening. I think we should pull back on that. Let's stop, have a moment for the characters to connect. And, then it was a memorable moment in that action sequence. So, overall, probably from conception to execution was, 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome. And that 12-minute action sequence in Extraction was freaking awesome. And there's so many films trying to do these like one takes or seeming like one takes. But that one that you did had so many different aspects in the space of like 12 minutes, like car chase, rooftops, all that. Did you have much inspiration from other films or, from anything for that scene, or did you just kind of, you have inspiration from everywhere, but
Yeah, well, you got to give a lot of credit to Joe Russo, the writer. He put a lot of great stuff down on the page. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then a lot of it comes for me of being in the space. So like I had an idea, and it was written as there were less fights in the sequence as written, but I try to usually add some of that stuff just because that's what I like to see and what I know I can do well. So it's like lean into your strengths. It's like how I do it. You're like, you guys, I can do an Australian accent really well. So how about that? But so we needed to add some more fights, but knew that we wanted to have it kind of, start with a bit of a foot chase, get in a car, a bit of a car chase, and then, get out of the cars, lead through some very interesting, and a lot of it was to see the space too, because when in India, the visuals are so stunning. You can't really look in any direction and not be just entertained by the environment. Like it's so stunning. So we were like, we need to get out of the car and see some of this stuff. And so, that was inspired by the locations. And so then, get there and go, oh, this place is amazing. Let's find a way to utilize these stairs. How do we utilize this rooftop? And, you start to, or I do, at least when I'm designing, start to let the sets and the locations speak to me of like, what's the best, most interesting way to photograph this, and what action can be then put here that will represent this place and showcase it in the best light. So a lot of my inspiration comes from being there. And so that's why location scouts are very important, and having time to go ahead and see these spaces and design the action around these amazing locations.
Yeah, cool.
That's full on. I'd probably look at it and go, how amazing is this cityscape? But whereas you're looking at it going, oh, hell, we could throw a guy off that roof over there and someone can come through that window.
Exactly. And then, with those roofs, like for example, the one that our two stunt doubles won Taurus Awards for, Stunt Awards, is when they fall off of the balcony, hit the awning and the truck and the street.
Brutal.
When thank you. Thank them. They did it. I just asked them to,
That's amazing.
But that one, when there's not an awning to fall on, sometimes you got to build what you need, right? Yeah. So we added that awning to a certain specific angle so it wouldn't be too fast, but it would keep the momentum going. And then we parked the truck filled with, stunt pads and all of the kind of the right places and rehearsed it. So sometimes when what you want isn't in the space, you got to bring things that you need to that space and augment the natural environment. And that's to me one of the magical things about filmmaking, right? Isn't it? You watch that movie and you wouldn't know that awning doesn't exist anymore. It wasn't there before, and it's not there now. We put it there, we filmed it, we made a great sequence out of it, and then it's gone. And the magic is over, or lives forever on the film.
Indeed, yeah, and it's amazing to see it all come together. It's full on. I think, look, to take it back several steps, I think having completed a couple of basic stunt courses, like designed specifically for actors, like how to move with weapons and look like it's real, how to handle weapons safely, how to like the fight choreography, very different to Wing Chun, Hong Kong street fighting, I can really appreciate the benefits of that, having worked with a couple of stunt coordinators on set, and having that sort of behind me. I could turn up and be a bit more engaged in how I need to communicate. Well, certainly that's what's worked for me. Is that something you'd recommend for actors to sort of get a bit of an appreciation?
I always think any kind of movement background for acting is helpful, because acting is all about, well, as I understand it, there's so many different ways but it's just about being able to express yourself fully in whatever, situation you find yourself in. And I, just where having a background in a physical discipline allows you more tools in the toolbox. You've experienced pain or pushing yourself past a certain point, per se, the discipline of martial arts, and then just the movement, understanding your body and how to, because now you have the ability to play different characters, right? And so if you want to be in action roles, I think it was not essential, because a great stunt team will put you through those paces, but it is always helpful to come into that situation with as much knowledge and training as possible. So I don't think there's ever really a bad physical discipline to practice, as long as you have a great coach and do it safely and wisely.
How do you approach working with actors? I mean, is it whether you've got your whether you got your stuntman hat on, or whether it's director? And is it the same approach? Like, is it more collaborative, or are you a dictator on set?
Obviously, I mean, look at me with this beard. I'm going to dictate everything. The fun of the job, both as a stunt coordinator, action designer, stunt man, and director, I think, is working with many different kinds of people. And making movies is solving a puzzle, and each piece of that puzzle usually has a different name. And so it's more about managing people and understanding the psychology of human behavior, and like, it's like, okay, what do I need out of this person and how do I get it? But not in a manipulative way. I mean, it is technically manipulative, just like you manipulate the camera to get the shots you want. You're working with these actors to get a performance and craft a performance that you want. The most rewarding day on a set, or moments in this business for me, are when you're collaborating fully, when you and the actor are seeing eye to eye, and you're 100% in agreement and alignment on your goals, whatever that may be. It could just be doing a forward roll as your stunt coordinator. You're like, all right, I want to make sure you're safe. Here's how you're going to do it. They do it, and they've rehearsed it, and everything goes well, and that's great, very satisfying. Or it could be an emotional moment, when you're directing, and you've rehearsed this piece, or maybe you haven't, but you've talked about it and you know where you want to go, and then you're going to this in the same direction together. And when you get there, it's pretty rewarding. So for me, the rewarding aspect, the most rewarding aspect of directing, is the challenge of working with all these different kinds of actors, because every single one of y'all are different.
Yeah, fair point.
Very true. Out of curiosity, so you've worked with some pretty big names. You worked with Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde, and obviously Chris in Extraction and all that. Are they both, like, all three of you are extremely talented people? Are they a dream for a stuntman director to direct and to do action with, I guess?
Yes, the two names that you named, Charlize Theron and Chris Hemsworth, I've worked with a lot of great people, and they're two of the most talented and hardworking and collaborative, which I think is very important, individuals that I've ever met.
Yeah, wow.
And that makes our job easy, regardless of what the job may be. Like, as an action director, excuse me, great, because they're going to work hard. They show up for rehearsals. They put in the time. They understand what it is we're trying to do. And then what we're trying to do is helping them do what they're trying to do more effectively. And so they respectfully show up and they put in the time, and then on set they're pushing it. Like, recently told the story of Charlize she was the one asking for take 21 once we'd done 20 takes of this, fight bit. She's like, no, we're all like, oh my gosh, like we're there, everybody's beaten up. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn. And she's like, no, pretty good is not good enough. We go again. I want it to be great.
Fantastic.
And so we do it again. And she was, she was right. And she knows her body better than anybody else. So she knows what she can take. And anyway, but that level of professionalism to do whatever it takes to get the shot is very refreshing. And Hemsworth is the same way. He, even on this movie, Extraction 2 that we're filming right now, he is I'm not going to say a taskmaster because that's my job, but he's right there with me, at the monitors where, after however many takes it has taken us to get it right. He's looking and we're observing and we're like, just searching for the same thing, which is the best performance in the moment for the film and this character. And having someone like that by your side is invaluable. And it's some of the top experiences in this business are working with people like that.
So certainly a key takeout is to put the work in. There's no shortcuts, and a collaborative approach is really going to help everyone to get over the line. One story I remember from the first Extraction movie was Chris asking some of the stunt team if he could rehearse in his hotel room even up to the day before shooting. Did that actually happen?
It did. Yeah, we were. I mean, the hotel room was like a hotel conference room. Right. Like we were all staying in India in a similar spot, and so after work, not just like an off day, they come to the evening. It was after a full day of shooting. We're out there for 10, 12 hours. He would be like, I want to work more because I feel like I can get better at this. And, so we did. The whole stunt team and I would join because it was the director and I was shooting it. So I wanted to see it as many times as I could. And we would show up and we'd rehearse for a couple of hours just to get it, just to put in the extra reps. Cause there's no substitute for preparation.
Yeah.
Like you can tell the difference when you show up and you've put in the time and put in the effort and you're ready. That allows you to have spontaneous moments of breakthrough and take your performance to the next level, whether it's physical performance or emotional. But you put in the work, then you get to play. And then it's really fun, but then there's other times when you're like, you haven't put in the work and you're like, oh boy, I just want this day to be over.
It's really tough.
Exactly. So, so the admonition to all those young actors and stunt performers or anyone out there is just put in the work. That is what you can control. So I'd say it's a lot of things in life you cannot control, but showing up, putting in the effort, you can control that. So, do yourself a favor and show up.
The Marvel films, I'll just take a quick moment to talk about the Marvel films because I feel like they've really increased or upped the ante when it comes to epic action sort of sequences. Did you get, or how much creative input did you get in how those sorts of scenes would play out, or do the Russo brothers just say, they fight, make it amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give a lot of credit and homage to the Russo brothers and the Marvel family because they gave us a lot of creative freedom. There were certain story beats that would be embedded in every action sequences, but oftentimes it was as simple as or as broad as they fight, and it became was a great collaborative experience because it was rarely just the fight team or just the VFX team or just the directorial team or production team. It was a very collaborative group of people who came together to make these amazing sequences because most of the time it was a combination. We would do a lot of inventive, creative fight action, and then it would be handed off to the visual effects team and they would augment what we were doing or take over a character, if you will, like Iron Man, for example. We do, like in Civil War, the battle between Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man in that old reactor room. That was 3 stunt performers, and so sometimes the actors would jump in there too. But the stunt performer in the Iron Man suit and fighting with them hand to hand, but then it would be enhanced, right, or replaced. His performance would be replaced with the digital asset. So it was always collaborative. And a lot of times they being the Russo brothers, would say, hey, this is the feeling we want. Or we want to make sure that, we're telling the story of Cap is never going to give up. Bucky his arm has to get, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, but his arm's got to get lost in this moment. And Iron Man has to, push Cap to the breaking point, or whatever that is, the story that they're trying to tell. They would always be honing in on the performance or on the storytelling. And so we, as the fight design team would, and stunt team would then take those, those guidelines and craft our action around it, always keeping in mind story and character, because every great action sequence within the character development or moving the story forward.
So one of the last questions before we wrap up, Sam, is can you tell us anything about Extraction 2? Anything?
I can tell you that it is, going to be twice as big, twice as badass, and twice as cold as the first movie. It's a very different feel, a very different look, but it's a lot of the same things that people fortunately came to love about the first one. So I'm excited for y'all to get to see it.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait. Well, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. As a couple of budding actors, some great advice. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
You're
Sam.
very welcome. Thank you for having me on the show, and keep doing what you guys are doing. It's awesome.
You're listening to Two Unemployed Actors. I'm Max.
I'm Sam.
You'll hear us next week.
Two unemployed actors.